Back in San Francisco for Game 5, the Boston Celtics don't seem to be bothered by Steph Curry's explosion when everyone else seems to be. It's all about the offense for the Celtics. I'm going to be talking about it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team. Step back, we gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine. We're here for you Monday through Friday. Bonus episodes, trying to go 7 days a week. Didn't do it yesterday because I had technical issues. Couldn't get connected to the internet here. So that's all right. Took a day off. Now I'm back for Game 5 of the NBA Finals. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. I was one of the media voters for the 75th Celtics anniversary team. With this podcast, it's free, available everywhere podcasts exist. It's also on YouTube. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. We're closing in, I think, on 6,900 subscribers, trying to get to 7,500. Today, I'm joined by former reporter. Basically, this is the first time we've talked. This is we were traded for each other. Basically,
wait, not the first time we talked. We talk a lot, John. Let's let the people know.
First time we've talked on a podcast since then.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
First time we've talked publicly in a podcast setting since we were essentially traded for each other, which I didn't think at the moment when we were kind of like going through everything, it was, I didn't think it was a big deal, but then really when you look at it, it's a very odd thing to have happened where I was at MassLive and you were at Boston Sports Journal. And then I left MassLive, you went there and I went to Boston Sports Journal. So
classic lose trade. Everyone came out behind.
Yeah. So Brian Robb, if you don't know Brian Robb is one of the best in the business and host of the Winning Plays podcast. So happy to have B-Rob on here. We talk all the time. And we were talking before we walked into practice today. We're like, now at this point, everybody's like clamoring for more stuff, but like there's not a whole lot left to talk about. This is basically, B-Rob, okay, Warriors, you do what you do. Celtics, you do what you do. Whichever team does what they do best is it. Like the analysis, this is nothing, man. This is just like take your shirt off, street fight, and somebody's going to end up be the last person standing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see the Aaron Nesmith wild card in Game 5 here, if we want to put it like that. But yeah, this is a spot, and I mean, and to follow up on your point, I think Ime Udoka even kind of doubled down on it, particularly today at the media avails here out in San Fran that we were at, just talking about, we're going to change how we're defending Curry and things along those lines, and he was kind of like, no, like this is we're doing pretty well defensively overall. Like the problem is with our offense and why we're losing these games. And so that kind of tells you, will there be tweaks here and there kind of below the surface stuff that you can, really dig into after you watch film? Sure. But like in terms of right now in this series, both sides have played their cards and now it's a matter of like who's going to execute better and come out with 2 wins in these next 3 games.
Today's episode, by the way, is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Yeah, and it's going to be wild for people to think because I would say probably 70% of the media questions at practice on Sunday were about Steph Curry, which is natural after a 43-point explosion. And you say, Celtics could have won if they only limited Steph Curry. But really, the Celtics are like, it feels like the collective attitude is like, okay, yeah, he's 43. Yeah, you don't want to give up 43. Yeah, maybe if they give up 33, it would have been a better situation. And it's just an ungodly performance from Steph. That's going to happen. But the Celtics never seem to be bothered by Steph. I think the Celtics are just, it's about, like you said, it's the offense. It's their own thing. and I've been saying it on this podcast for the past week now. The Celtics, it's more about correcting the things that they can control, like the offense, like the offensive rebounds that they give up, like the turnovers. Just those few things that continues to be their focus, and they're going to keep defending Steph the way that they defend Steph. And I think they're justified in that when you look at the Warriors took that 3-point lead on a Steph Curry 3, which was like 0.35 or 38. And then there were 2 minutes where the Celtics didn't score. If they had scored a couple of buckets, maybe they win that game even with Steph's explosion.
Yeah, I mean, they're in position to. But that's kind of the crunch time situation, John, is something that really has not been fully solved with this team, even despite their incredible success during the second half of the season. It's just been they've been beating teams before it gets to crunch time, even the playoffs most of the time. And even then, like the one time they won in crunch time, it was Game 7 against the Heat, and that was only because there wasn't another 30 seconds in that game, luckily for them. So that's something I do wonder now, like offensively, if they're able to, have, fully turn the corner and really figure that out in one of these next few games here, because I have a feeling that we're going to have some more crunch time situations here coming up. But there's no question that offensively, execution-wise, they're right there, even despite Curry's explosion. So that can make them feel good going into Game 5, being like, okay, if we just took care of business in the last 5-6 minutes of this game, like we would be in position to win this series right now, and we can still do that.
It's funny. Everybody talks about the statistics for the Celtics of once you get, if it's 15 or fewer turnovers, they win. If it's more than that, they lose. Maybe the real statistic is if there's a last 2-minute report, they lose. And if there isn't, then they win. That's probably the more accurate statistic. It's kind of funny, man. We've come all this way. It feels like we've come so far with this team, and yet it's almost like we've gone so far that we've started to circle back. Like you can only go so far around the globe before you start making a return trip. And I think this is where the Celtics kind of are. They've overcome so much, and yet the crunch time numbers back at the beginning, remember the whole conversation that we always had on our podcast. The crunch time numbers are so bad, but those were a remnant of November, December when, before they'd figure stuff out, and then they just started blowing teams out. Now we're back to crunch time numbers a little bit, and it becomes, oh, wait, they never really did figure out how to close out crunch time. Look no further than Game 7 against the Heat, where they seriously were a half inch away from not even being here. We would be doing this podcast about, will the Celtics trade into the first round of the NBA draft?
I don't mind not doing those podcasts this year.
My God. Oh, thank God.
But yeah, it is something where that, and I'd say too, John, like for Game 4 the other night, it was more of like the offense all game just wasn't that great, period, which was, I think, a telltale sign of it really getting sidetracked in those last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. And I'll give the Warriors a lot of credit too. I thought, top to bottom there, from the personnel standpoint, to Steve Kerr, I think just pushing the right buttons there, going offense, defense with Draymond. Like this wasn't like a Celtics totally blew it situation. This was also like, no, the Warriors defended really well and like made life hard in the Celtics. So when they weren't running their stuff effectively, they were obviously just relying on the three there. So that's going to be something where the coaching staff and the players are going to have to like look hard and maybe put in a little bit more effort into, okay, you guys are going to run your stuff. Like you got to run it hard here and make sure, maybe add a little couple wrinkles on the end of things to make sure that the Warriors can, get the read on what you're going to do.
It's funny that we're still talking about their ability to focus. Let's hold off for a second. Let's talk about their ability to focus, because that's one thing Jaylen Brown was asked specifically. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, I'm going to tell you about TrueBill, which focuses on saving you money on subscriptions that you have forgotten about, or those free subscriptions, those free things that the trials that these companies will give you, and then you forget about. What TrueBill does is it's an app. You plug all of your stuff in, and then you either set it and it'll tell you, hey, remember this free trial you had to blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, no problem. Hey, you've got 10 streaming subscriptions. You might want to cancel one of these. And you say, oh, yeah, that's right. I don't need all of these. They make these hard to cancel, and TrueBill just makes it very simple. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. TrueBill makes it very simple. You link your accounts, you cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. TrueBill Concierge is there to help you cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. There are people, like 2 million users, they've saved over $100 million. There are people who have saved hundreds of dollars just by, just on the car insurance or canceling a DirecTV bill. So don't fall for the subscription scams. Don't have to set all these reminders about just plug them all into TrueBill. Go to TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA right now. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA could save you $1,000 a year at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. This week, we're starting the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. If you're interested in the draft, it starts on June 16th with over 50 insiders. Nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. Locked On NBA Big Board Draft Experts plus Odyssey Insiders. First pick, June 16th. Make that your second listen. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you do not miss a pick. We do not have a pick in the first round, so we're still looking at the NBA Finals. I'm back here with B-Rob from the Winning Plays podcast, MassLive. Jaylen Brown was asked, what's the word of the day going into Game 5? Which he loved that question. And he said, focus. And it was kind of funny. I put that in there on my story on Boston Sports Journal, and the first comment was, 2 games into two wins away from a championship, and you're still worried about your focus? It's kind of like, but that is who the Celtics are. They, for all of their strengths, I don't know any other way to better explain their end of game issues other than lack of focus.
Yeah, it's something that's plagued them all year long beyond when they have these close games. And they've been able to, the good news is they've bounced back better than any team probably ever in the second half of the season here, like not losing 2 in a row for at least end games where they've had their full lineup for, I think, at least 4 months now, John, which is nuts.
It's been a long time.
It's been a real long time. So that's, I mean, whether you want to, people can give it upset all they want in terms of like, yeah, they get sidetracked here in these games and they can't pull it together down the stretch, but the response has been just as good. And that's where you look at this team, and I mean, Derek White's joked about it with us being like, yeah, this is kind of what we do, or like, we always make it hard on ourselves. And so
yeah,
that is where this team is at this point. But as long as the problem here, I guess, is like your margin of error is that much slimmer. You're not going against a beat up Heat team now. After dropping a pivotal game before, you're going up against Steph Curry and a bunch of guys that have a ton of championship experience. So from that standpoint, that's where we're going to find out if this, that lack of focus, if you will, for some of these games, is going to come back to bite them in the ass.
I wonder if it's better to say not a lack of focus, maybe a lack of unified focus.
I mean, I don't like, you think like it's urgent. I don't even know what it is. Like, do they get relaxed at home? Like, I don't even know what it's probably. It changes every game at this point in terms of like.
Does
there's no common thread really?
I think when they're at their worst, I've likened it to almost like an addiction to isolation basketball. Like, yeah. I don't think that Ime has changed who these guys are. I think Ime has gotten them to basically go on a diet. He's gotten them to be really good at eating salad and fish when what they really want to do is eat pizza. And they've never really gotten away from that. They're just, whenever Ime is around looking at them, they're like, yeah, no problem. Salad and fish and all of that stuff, or however you want to make the analogy. But when you're, whenever you're tired, you get into your worst habits. Your worst habits come back, like whether it's in eating or a drinking or a whatever other vice you have. The Celtics' vice is isolation basketball, and Tatum relies on it. Jaylen relies on it. Other guys, Marcus goes back to his, hey, I'm super confident, I'll take that shot type of thing. And they haven't, when they say they bought in, they haven't changed who they are. They are just, they've bought into, I'm following this script. But at their core, at their heart, and when it's late in the game and they've played 40 plus minutes and they're just all beat to hell, there's okay, I feel like there's I'm tired. And maybe when they're at home, they feel like, okay, we just, come on, I get the crowd here. We can just do this. I'm just going to get this shot. I'm just going to do this. And then on the road, I think they do have more focus because they know that the other team's crowd is like, they're cheering for the Warriors. So they know, like, okay, we have to dig in here. We have to focus because the other team is cheering at the wrong time. So we have to like focus on what we're doing at this time because it's so loud in here. We have no choice but to focus. Whereas at home, they're just like, okay, yeah, they're all right behind us. Let's just I feel like they get into this little groove, like, all right, I'm just going to throw this pass. But Brian, I can't believe how many passes are tipped. Simple chest passes, simple passes are tipped and stolen. Like, this is why I get so worked up about the Celtics correcting their stuff and getting accused of not giving the Warriors proper credit, because the Celtics throw these lazy passes that just get tipped and stolen. You're like, what was that? You threw it right to them.
Yeah, the turnover. I mean, Marcus Smart in particular, a few of these passes these last couple games are just ones you'd see in a preseason game in terms of like,
yes.
And that's the kind of crap that I'm sure Ime and the coaching staff are just flipping out at this point. Like, you got it. Like, that just can't happen. Like, the attention to detail has to be there, like, for a full 48 or as close as you can get to it. And passes like that where you're trying to thread the needle too much, or you just do a little just go fancy when there was really no need to. And that stuff that's gonna add it up. And that particularly did in game 4. And now, to their credit, they've been a lot better with that stuff on the road. All posting like this, I think, when you broke it down just nicely there, but they really need to do better at that when they do get into isolation situations, which is warranted when they have the right mismatches. I thought, honestly, in game 4, they went at a lot of the wrong guys down the stretch of time. I think they went really hard at Klay Thompson when he was having a real good defensive game, as opposed to getting Curry involved in the actions more or Poole when he was out there. And so I think stuff like that, the attention to detail, things like that, when it's great to move the ball, but sometimes if Jaylen's got it going, yeah, we should, take it in, but make sure you're doing it at the right guys. And that, again, that's attention to detail, focus, whatever you want to call it. That's the stuff that they really need to be locked in on in the end of the series.
You think there's almost like too much confidence in themselves? Like, each guy has so much confidence in himself. And I think everybody's coming from a good place. Like, I don't think any of these guys are doing things from a, screw these guys, I'm doing that. Like, I think Tatum and Jaylen and Marcus and all of these guys have a real confidence in themselves to the point where it's like, okay, things aren't going great, I'll do it. And I think that's one of the things that gets them in trouble. And that's why they stagnate, because it's very much a, hey, it would be equal to me looking at you and you're like, oh man, I got Wi-Fi problems, or I'm having writer's block, and I'm like, no problem, Robb, I'll write your MassLive article. Yeah. And I come out and like, and I'm like, wait a second, you got your, like, that's I think the equivalent of what the Celtics are doing. And hey, I'd be doing it because I'm trying to help my buddy out, but also that's not my job. And I think the Celtics are kind of in that same place.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna hit you up on this tomorrow night. We're gonna see how this goes. because you just opened a door that I'm going to take at 2 a.m.
I got to see if I still have my old login.
Yeah,
Maybe
you get to log in. Listen, I thought we were going to be teammates in the first place. We're going to have again, but no. It's there's no doubt about it. I think, and I honestly think that Smart might be the worst offender of anyone on that mentality when when he's like, yeah, guys aren't moving, nothing's going on here. Okay, I'm gonna have to listen. Someone's got to step up, and for all the good that Marcus Smart does, and he's had a good series overall here. That is exactly what the Celtics do not need to happen in the fourth quarter of these games, because say what you want about Marcus Smart, he's just not a high percentage shooter, and he's certainly not someone who should be pulling up off the dribble in any situations, and that happened a lot. And I feel like a lot of these fourth quarter losses.
You know what's going to happen, right? The Celtics are going to win a championship because Marcus Smart.
Yeah, that's be the last. He goes for
hits the game-winning three. They'd be down 2, and somehow the ball kicks out to Smart, and he's going to hit that shot. And it's going to be the ultimate trolling. Like, there's going to be a segment of the Celtics fandom who's going to be like, oh my God, we just won a championship. They won't be able to celebrate. They'll be like, really? They'll be in such shock. We'll talk.
Adam Jones will collapse in the spot.
I love it. All right, let's take a second here to talk about our friends at BetOnline, which has installed the Warriors as favorites in this game 5, which I don't know, this might bode well for the Celtics. The Warriors are 3.5-point favorites. The Celtics were favorites in the last one. I think the Celtics, if they get wind of them being the underdog, they might actually respond pretty well. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can get all the latest developments, news, and odds, including the end of these NBA finals, the last 2 or 3 games. Obviously, the NHL Stanley Cup finals are upon us. Major League Baseball, all the fights, MMA, UFC, boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live in-game betting. Hell, maybe there's somewhere on the site that you can bet on whether Marcus Smart is going to hit a game-winning 3. Also, esports, all that stuff. Head on over to the website today. You can use your mobile device. Learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. All right, let's get into game 5. For people watching on YouTube, if you're the astute watcher, you may notice that B-Rob and I have very similar backgrounds. In fact, that lamp over your right shoulder is the lamp that I have over here because we're staying in the same hotel. We've just decided to sit in different spots. I was hoping to use the light from the natural light to illuminate the room. And then when I sat down, the sun was directly in my eyes. So this is where you're probably like one floor above me. I can like hit the broom.
Yeah. So
keep it down up there. I'm trying to podcast. All right. So the Celtics, it's game 5. You're on the road. Are there any adjustments? Do the Celtics maybe go even bigger minutes with Tatum and Brown? Do you sit there and you say, look, man, there's literally, we're recording this on Sunday. There's literally 1 week left. There's 6 days by the time people listen to this, but you play this game, you're like, this is one of 2 or 3 games remaining. In a week, you're literally on your way to vacation. I don't know if they're going to even do exit interviews at that point. You might, if you win, maybe there's a parade at that point, so you can stick around for the parade. And, by the way, side note, which of the Celtics would be the one to pull the Gronk, the shirtless, catch beers and chug them on the
Ooh, that's a good one.
Which one of those guys? That guy.
Smart, maybe. Yeah, I'd go money on Smart, but I don't think there's a clear favorite. I think you can convince me easily.
You know, dark horse, Al Horford.
Yeah, you go just chocolate milk, just guzzling chocolate milk from the ads.
But like all of a sudden, he's the guy that finally breaks through. He's like, you know what? I'm getting hammered, and he's like shotgunning beers, and that'd be the best. The dad of the team, just shirtless, catching beers from the crowd and shotgunning them on the duck boat. That would be. I want to see that now. So anyway, back to my question. Do you think are there any adjustments? Does Ime just go with the same rotations and say these have worked? What we've done has worked up until a certain point where we stop executing. All we need to do is execute better. Or does he say, you know what? I'm riding these guys even more because we're almost done. If we can get this game, you get that game at home. We're done. We're celebrating and go on.
Yeah, I mean, with Tatum and Brown, you're certainly going 40 plus with a minimum. And I think if either of them have it going or just like which I don't think was necessarily the case in game 4, then you push on the gas even harder for them to get up to those 44, 45 minutes, I think, especially for this game 5 when you're not, the crowd boost on your side there. Beyond that, I'm fascinated to see just the 2 big versus 1 big situation. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of an even split these last 2 games. It worked. 2 bigs worked in game 3. Game 4, it was kind of not great either way. So I wonder there, and I wonder how Rob Williams obviously can. I think you just start there. What does Rob Williams look like in the game? And then you kind of, pick your path from there. One thing I do wonder, though, John, is like, and I don't think he'll go to this, but we haven't, like, if Curry gets it going again, and it's just hitting from everywhere against the drop coverage, I do wonder if they'll try the Grant Williams at the 5 situation, just to give them the option of switching there. And Grant Williams has not been very good in this series, so I totally see why they haven't gone to that yet. But that's one mini wrinkle, and they'll go to this for like, a few minutes here or there if they do it. But I wonder if they'll try that at some point to kind of throw Curry off and with like some all 5 switching, if you will, in a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see some of that happening, but I think when it comes to Curry, the one thing that I think really hurt the Celtics was Curry getting off the ball and then getting it back in game 4.
Yeah.
Versus, like, I wrote about this, and the concept has kind of been floated out there that the Celtics in the drop coverage, the whole point of it is to chase Curry off the top, have a big there to prevent him from pulling up from 3, try and to run him in theory, it's not worked, but get those bigs up there to try to prevent him from shooting or pulling from 3 as often as possible, force him into the 2 and get him to take those floaters, those longer 2s and whatever, and just stay home on everybody else. They, I think, are fine with Curry. I think they're fine with Curry scoring 43. The problem is when he is getting off the ball and it's not even like a pick and roll with Draymond. It's like a pitch, and then you get it back. That puts a lot of stress on the defense. And I think when he gets off the ball and gets it back, that's a breakdown in their defense. If they can just keep the ball in his hands, then they'll just live with the results. So they will, I'm sure, mix in some switching. Maybe they go with Grant, maybe not. I think ultimately the focus, I don't really think that they care. You look at it's about making your shots. I think the Celtics look at this. You make your shots, you don't turn the ball over. You force the Warriors to play a half court offense. You look at from cleaning the glass, you look at the numbers from game 4 for all the stuff that the Warriors did. Their offensive efficiency in the half court was awful. It was like 84. It was just like, you don't realize that because Curry's like putting up all these points, but it's running off of misses, getting out into transition, early shot clock stuff. If the Celtics can get back and set a defense, they'll live with whatever the Warriors get, because generally the Warriors aren't getting much in that situation. To me, the focus is how do we put the ball in the basket and how do we stop giving them turnovers, especially some of these Marcus Smart ones. Like Smart, Tatum, and Brown, your 3 best players, are the ones who are causing all of this. How do you prevent that? That to me is the number one and maybe even only focus. I think they're fine with their defense. I really don't think they are looking to make any defensive adjustments.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, and I think that's something that Ime, kind of backed up today. And I'll throw Derek White into as a fourth guy in the turnover front. He's had, or just someone who's going to be pivotal in terms of orchestrating the offense there, since he is, I think he's someone in this game. You ride him for probably 40 minutes just as well. I think he's probably your best option on Steph Curry. Especially from a speed standpoint, I think he has a little bit of an edge there, chasing him around screens compared to Smart. They're both obviously get a ton of time on them, but yeah, it's all those guys just need to really trust in each other and make sure you're spacing the floor for each other, make sure you're running the stuff well, and don't try to do too much. Don't try to thread the needle passing wise, and realize the extent of how much damage that does to you. Like giving transition offense to the Warriors, that is what is going to lose the Celtics this finals, and like it almost lost them the last two series. So if they've shown that they've been able to do that well enough when it matters most, and it becomes harder against this team because they can burn you unlike any team in the NBA in transition, and they'll do it from 3-point range. So that's a situation where you clean stuff up there, and then with White, with Smart, I don't know if you tell those guys to be like, hey, run around those screens even harder, like run over guys, like just try it. You're not going to get a good contest on Curry, but just don't make him feel comfortable, John. I feel like that's something he's been way too comfortable in a lot of these games, and that's something here where if you're not going to change your scheme, like totally understandable, but you have to do something to get him a little uncomfortable in these games, because he's shooting 49% from three, in the series, and so that if you dare him to keep doing that in the series, I don't want to take that bet from Ime Udoka, because I like Steph's chances on that front.
Sure. If we're doing this podcast 15 years ago, the reaction there would be, well, just put him on his ass.
Yeah,
right. When Curry comes around that screen, just hit him.
Curry put Smart on his ass in Game 4.
Yeah,
one of those, on a couple of those coming around.
You know what?
Jukes.
He turns the corner. Boom. If it's a foul, it's a foul. You can't do that nowadays, because then it becomes a potential 4-point play because Curry's so good. It becomes a potential flagrant. But at the same time, I'm sure the Celtics will say, because this is definitely the type of guy Ime is, you can find a way to be more physical with Curry. If he's off the ball, then get up in his airspace. Make him work even harder to go get the ball. The Celtics are the bigger, stronger, more physical team. They can definitely ramp that up a little bit without going 90s, Anthony Mason just leveling somebody with, Charles Oakley kind of stuff. But be more physical on defense for sure.
And make him work defensively too.
Absolutely.
Don't let him off the hook.
100%. Those guys have to defend. And that's why I don't have any problem going at Clay necessarily. But yeah, you have to defend with your offense 100%. All right. I don't know. Let's wrap it up with this. I feel confident in the Celtics in this situation. This is the spot where I feel like the Celtics are at their best. And if they win this game, I feel good about them winning this game. I have no idea what to expect in Game 6. I'll be like, I don't know. Might as well book my flight back here to come back for a Game 7. But I feel like this is the spot where Ime and these guys feel great about themselves. The only thing is, maybe you need to dress up the garden, tell all the fans to cheer for the other team. Give them all gold t-shirts,
gold and blue shirts for the garden on Thursday night.
Something like that.
I mean, that's what this all postseason long they've answered the bell in these situations. And again, I mean, I had them in Celtics in 6, so this is before the series started. So they got them right where they want them, I guess, if you want to go by that logic.
Man, what a weird series. B-Rob, thank you very much. Follow him on Twitter at Brian T. Robb, Winning Place Podcast, MassLive. Appreciate you hopping on, B-Rob.
Always fun, man. We'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, Brian Robb there. Thank you all for listening. Apologies again for yesterday not doing a podcast, but here now for the Game 5 preview. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you're still listening and you haven't, or watching and you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you are a subscriber, I would love it if you share the podcast, tell your friends, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.